0400. Time to get ready, and we're setting off at 5, so we better get cracking.
10 minutes and we're leaving.
The plan was to take Kalypso, our Dufour 365, from the English East Coast where we live, to the history and warmth of the Mediterranean. But first we had to sail her down the English Channel, across the notorious Bay of Biscay, down the entire Atlantic coast of Portugal, and to the border with Spain for the winter. Why don't you come along with us and see how we did?
Okay, just about ready. Most important thing, coffee made.
We're near Black Deep. We're going to turn, head south toward Folger's Gat, which takes us through the wind farm, and then on into the Thames estuary. It's really nice winds today, but the seas are a bit rocky and rolly. Just I think it's tide and wind against tide and some swell all combined to make it a bit choppy and mixed. We are now at Goodwin's Fork at the south part of the Gull Stream. There's Ramsgate over here somewhere.
The way the waves build up here, steep but close together, reminds me of how treacherous it is right here near the Goodwin Sands, which is called the Great Ship Swallower due to the number of ships that have gone aground and ultimately been lost here. In November 1703, a massive cyclone hit southern Britain, and more than 1,000 sailors lost their lives only just off our port side here on the Goodwin Sands. The graphic shows a chart of wreck density in the area, and these are just for the known wrecks. It's believed that between 1,000 and 2,000 ships have been lost here, and that's just in recent history.
The tide and the wind are actually going the same way. Filling in the log. First mate, second mate, third mate.
Over to starboard is the port of Dover. It's a place rich in maritime and wartime history, and if you've never visited Dover Castle, next time you're in the area, I highly recommend it. Here between Dover and Boulogne, countless ships have been intentionally sunk, run aground, or were lost to wind, weather, and the sea. Almost 78 years ago, HMS Codrington was bombed while a dock of Dover, and a few days later, HMS Brazen, also of the Royal Navy, was sunk by German dive bombers just off Folkestone, which is only a couple miles down channel. During World War I, HMS Gurkha, a Royal Navy destroyer, hit a mine off Dungeness just 20 miles further up the coast, and that's just a few of the many, many ships. The Imperial German Navy lost 269 people, and the SMS Grosser Kurfürst when it collided with another German ship in 1878. We're really lucky today with our advanced materials, electronics, radar, AIS, and the peace that now exists in Europe.
Well, the end of day one. We are running down the French coast past Boulogne toward Dieppe. And it's been pretty racy and sporty today, this afternoon especially. My able crew over here, Simon, has done a phenomenal job.
By this time the sun was starting to set and the seas had started to calm down a little bit, but the calm seas weren't going to last for very long.
This is the best, worst weather I've ever been in.
Right?
rubbish weather. What do we got for dinner? We've got corn casserole. Karen has baked us tons of nice stuff that was all frozen to make it easier on passage. For safety purposes, you do not want to see what my hair looks like after 2 days. What I'm going to do is try to log in and check the weather using the Iridium phone. I've got an Iridium and I've got a Redport optimizer. This acts as a wireless base station for my iPad, which is running Predict Wind. What I can do is go on there and download very small files. You can't load big ones, but download the small files showing the GRIB files for the European medium weather forecast and probably GFS global forecast system. So yeah, what we're going to do is check the weather for tomorrow and see if it's continuing to be good, following wind. If not, we might make a decision to stay in Cherbourg for a day. We'll see.
As the GRIB files predicted, the winds dropped to nothing and we motored across a calm sea toward Cherbourg. By now we were north of the Normandy coast, where in June of 1944 the Allies landed a huge force to begin the invasion of Axis-held Europe. On the beaches of Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword, thousands of Allied and Axis troops fought and died. Ultimately the Allies won, and we have them to thank for the current peace in Europe. Not too much further on, the sun and a large bottlenose dolphin lifted our spirits as we headed off into the night and towards Cherbourg.
We're running down the Alderney race now. We're about 20 miles from La Treguier, I think that's how you pronounce it, on the Brittany coast. Where we're hoping to find an anchorage for the night. Well, for the rest of the night. We won't get there until about 2 a.m. It's the weather's closing in tomorrow morning, so we're going to find a snug harbor there and stay warm and have a good sleep. Make some, do a little cleaning and stuff maybe, and then as you can see below, it was a bit of a mess. And then we'll set off probably tomorrow night for La Baroque, where we're going to wait out the tide to take us into Brest. So we're getting close now. Good passage.
Tidal flows in the Alderney race can reach 10 knots, but we'd planned the passage so that we were being carried by a fair tide down past the Channel Islands. Halfway through the race, pea-soup thick fog rolled in, and thank goodness for radar and AIS. The night found us sailing well under a brilliant sky full of more stars than I thought was even possible. Underneath us, phosphorescence twisted and roiled as we headed for an ominous river entrance in the pitch black and surrounded by partially submerged rocks, ready to rip Kalypso's keel away if we strayed even a few meters off course.
We're currently anchored in an anchorage down the river Treguier. I don't know how you pronounce it exactly. We came in last night at about 2 a.m. and that was well dodgy. The light patterns in our charts and everything were different from the ones we actually saw, so it was a bit fraught because it was pitch black, and I knew this part of Brittany was you know, kind of very rocky and such, so I was a little bit worried about it. Well, when we looked out this morning, there was rocks and everything everywhere. Let me show you.
As with all sailing, the important thing here was a lot of prep work and an excellent crew, with their eyes peeled for rocks last night.
So the plan tonight is to, or this afternoon, is to wait the gusts outside. We actually came in last night because we were sailing down through the Alderney race, and we were planning on heading straight to La Baroque, which is on the end of the Brittany Peninsula, and it's a good staging place to wait for the Chenal du Foix tides to change, so you're going through those at the proper time. We had to time the Alderney race. I think I got that out by about an hour, so we lost an hour of fair tide, but we still got a pretty impressive track down there, or trip down there. But we looked, and the winds were really supposed to kick up 25-30 knot gusts, and in the dark, that's not a lot of fun to be sailing in that, pounding into waves to windward. So we came in here last night, and the idea now is to wait until those gusts abate, which the data I've just downloaded looks like 8 o'clock-ish. So that's also happens to be high tide here. So what we'll do is we'll start tidying up and prepare everything, and leave the berth at about, or the anchorage at about 7 something, and head out so that we can hit it right at the peak of high tide, and then follow the ebb out, so we get some nice ebb tide pulling us down the channel. That's it. So it's about a 13-hour to 16-hour, depending on wind and weather and all that, trip down to La Baroque, where we're going to stop and wait, and then we'll catch the fair tide around the Chenal du Foix to Brest or Camaret-sur-Mer on Friday or Saturday. So all good, but that's it. It's been so far it's been a pretty good trip. It was a really nasty washing machine type conditions on the second day, on Tuesday, but the following winds were phenomenal, so at least we were getting blown in the direction we wanted. But rolling down those big combers, 2-3 meter combers, and then having the kind of that corkscrew motion wasn't good for the crew or the captain. And I usually don't suffer a lot, but I really suffered on that. So that's it.
I bet these burritos have had better days.
Still pretty windy, but I think my plan's working. Gusts seem to have dropped a little bit. The sun's come out, so maybe we won't freeze to death on the next journey. Yeah, we could.
Put this Jenny up, couldn't we?
Maine would be better.
Sorry?
The Maine would be better.
We're going to pop it up.
How does it feel taking us out of Lac Treguier?
Amazing.
Yes, say goodbye. We're about 7 nautical miles off Aberrock, which is on the Brittany Peninsula, right near Brest. We're stopping here tonight. First order priority, showers. Second, if we can get some fuel, that doesn't hurt, although we're not starving for it. Fill up our water tanks if possible, but really just to get some good rest and to have some showers. We've had a really good passage down the channel. There's always some rough spots, but this one has been pretty good. The last 5 hours we've had to motor, though, because the winds have just completely died, and we've got some big Atlantic rollers coming in, which means we keep climbing up these 3-meter waves and then down 3-meter waves. So we're not banging or anything, so it's it's absolutely fine. But it'd be nice if we had a little more wind, but I'm not complaining.